She said she never goes out without telling me, but I caught her leaving at 3 a.m. on the security camera. I didn't wake up from a sound, I woke up from light. The room was blue and square from my phone screen face up on the nightstand. The notification glow like a silent police siren. Motion at front door. I blinked, smudged sleep from the corner of my eye with the heel of my hand, and tapped the preview. The camera app pushed me straight into the timeline. A fisheye hallway, a tight circle of cheap carpet, and the edge of our welcome mat with the dumb cursive, "Hey." A figure in a black hoodie eased our door closed from the outside, careful with the handle like it might squeal. She turned just enough for the lens to catch the angle of her jaw, the familiar ponytail spilling out the back of the hood. My black sneakers on her feet, the ones she always said were comfy thieves. 3:07 a.m. The timestamp burned in the corner like a little red lie detector. I watched her step across the mat, glance up toward the ceiling camera in the lobby like she could feel it, then slip out of frame. The video auto-looped, and I caught the tiny details you don't see when you love someone. How she held her shoulders as if she were stepping into cold water, the way she tucked her hands in the sleeves when she was anxious. I stayed very still, like moving would break the glass of whatever I was looking at and let reality cut me. Beside me, the dent in the mattress where she usually slept was just a tidy valley of sheets, untouched. A tiny part of me reached for easy explanations. Maybe trash, maybe a neighbor's cat, maybe a glitch where the camera replays old footage. But the shoes. My shoes on her feet. That was the small mean fact I couldn't explain away. The apartment was too quiet in the way night gets, when the fridge hum sounds like someone thinking. I padded to the door, careful with the boards that creaked near the kitchenette, and placed my ear to the wood. Nothing. No footsteps coming back. I knew the ritual of our building at weird hours. The cab tires hiss, the elevator cable groans. Someone's television murmurs 2 floors down. I slid the chain into place and stood there longer than was reasonable, listening like a kid trying to hear the ocean in a shell. I didn't sleep afterward, just lay there with my phone in my hand, thumb hovering over the call button like I could summon her by accident. I scrolled back in the camera app. A few dust flake pings from the hallway earlier in the night, a neighbor retrieving food, some flicker from the motion sensor that always misread shadows. Then her. A clean slice of her at 3:07. No earlier exit captured. She'd been in bed when I fell asleep. I remembered that. She had tucked cold feet between my calves and laughed when I yelped, then mumbled something about turning on the white noise and drifted off. I replayed that too, trying to feel where the seam was, where the trick cut happened. I must have dozed with the screen face down on my chest. When morning came, it came in boring ways. Garbage truck, light through the vertical blinds, the ceiling fan clicking every 4 rotations. I made coffee. The smell filled our small place, and for a moment that steadied me. At 8:11, the lock turned and the door pushed against the chain. There was that millimeter of resistance and a soft, "Oh," and then the chain slid out and the door opened with the familiar scrape. Aliyah stood there in the black hoodie, hood down now, hair in a messy bun that always looked better on her than when she tried. No bag, no keys in hand, just her phone, face down, and her lip caught between her teeth like she was already braced for something else entirely. "Morning," she said, too bright. She brushed past to kiss my cheek, citrus cutting through the coffee, lemon cleaner or something sharper. "You're up early," I set a mug on the counter. "You're up late," she looked at me, a tiny tick at the left corner of her eye, the tell I only learned after year 2. "I took the trash," she said, already tossing the hoodie at a dining chair like it had never left our apartment for longer than a stairwell. The bin was gross. "You know how it gets. Trash at 3 a.m., I said, letting it sit there like a penny on a rail. She grinned at the floor. I couldn't sleep. I figured I'd do something productive instead of doom scrolling. She moved to the sink to wash 1 spoon that was already clean, sleeves pushed up, wrists bare. The citrus again. Too much, like she'd rubbed it on her hands. The hoodie was on the chair beside my laptop, and when I brushed past to grab the sugar, I caught a whiff beneath lemon that smelled like a new marker uncapped. I didn't say, "I saw you." I couldn't yet parse whether knowing would help me or just hand her the map of how to move around me. So I asked about small things. "How was your night? Did the white noise app work for you? Did the upstairs neighbor finally fix that loose picture frame that thuds the wall at random?" She parried in small ways too. "Work's a mess. Vika's being Vika. We should do tacos tonight." She seemed like Aliyah, the same 70% that makes you ignore the 30% you're scared of. But in the 30% were oddities. The spare key that lived in our catch-all dish was gone. The bin had a fresh plastic liner, but the old one wasn't in the hall's big can, and there was no drip trail, no faint onion ghost. Her phone lit up face down and flashed a bar of the lock screen. No preview text, just "Ride completed. Thanks. I wiped my hands on a towel and said, casually as I could, did you take a rideshare last night? Her eyes went to the hoodie like she could tuck the timeline back inside it. What? Number? Are you? Why? My phone showed a motion alert around 3. I thought maybe you ran to the store. She snorted. Your camera's haunted. Didn't we say that last week? It pinged when nobody was there, remember? She reached for a mug, misjudged the shelf, fumbled it, and the ceramic knocked against the counter with a hollow sound. You're getting paranoid, Nate. I love you. But when you don't sleep enough, you get weird. There are words that push you into submission because they are borrowing your better self. Paranoid. Weird. I bit the inside of my cheek, tasted metal, and nodded. Maybe, I said. We did normal Saturday things. Laundry. She narrated an influencer's apartment tour to me while I pretended not to care. We argued sweetly about whether Basil survives on our sill or always dies out of spite. In the quiet pockets, I drifted to our front door and peered through the peephole at the camera above. That bulging glass eye. I pulled up the app again, replayed the clip again. The hoodie landed like a curtain over the Alia I thought I knew. After lunch, she showered. Steam breathed under the bathroom door and the citrus got louder, like it was in the water now. I wandered into our shared closet looking for my old running cap and found something else instead. One of the storage cubes slid half an inch out of line. I'm not a detective, but I am neat. Order is a comfort when the world feels like a room with too many doors. I pulled the cube out and found a laptop sleeve. Cheap gray neoprene with an unbranded zipper. Inside, an older model notebook that wasn't mine. Its power light a shy blink of life. A folder. Not our tax stuff. A stack of plastic wear and tear. Laminated forms. A templated letterhead for tenant complaints. A printed guide titled, How to Exit a Lease Due to Safety Concerns. Half highlighted with notes in the margin in her fast, hard slant. I sat back on my heels on the carpet with the laptop across my thighs, my heartbeat making it bounce a little. The screen demanded a passcode. 4 numbers. My birthday failed. Her birthday failed. 0. 0, 0, 0 worked. Which would have been funny if it didn't feel like a trap set for a different animal. The desktop was a mess of folders. Budget. Vika stuff. Z old. Templates. I double-clicked templates and saw Word files with names like noise complaint, escalated, landlord threat, script, incident log, weekly. I closed it. I put everything back. I put it back so neatly that it felt like a confession. Like I was admitting I'd crossed a line and now had to balance the ledger with perfect edges. When she came out of the shower, hair up in a towel, she smelled like lemon and a little like fresh Sharpie and smiled at me with a softness I wanted to be real. Nap? She said. You're in your head. I nodded. I could feel the new weight of not knowing settling on the top shelf of my brain. The place where boxes gather dust and you forget what's inside until one day you need a screwdriver and you pull the wrong thing down. While she napped, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and a blank document blinking. I wrote nothing. I opened our building portal instead and found the entry log. A list of badge pings and callbox entries for the night. 2:54 a.m. Front door opened with resident code. 2:56. Elevator to 4. 3:05. Apartment 4. B door opened. 3:07. Camera motion detected. 3:09. Front door opened. 3:26. Front door opened. No unit listed for the last one. Someone had piggybacked behind another resident. Or the system didn't log it right. Either way, there it was again. 3:07, stamped twice. Like the universe had rubber-stamped the hour. I didn't tell myself a story yet. I just collected nouns. Hoodie. Citrus. Hoodie again. Spare key gone. Templates. 3:07. I copied the camera clip to my cloud in case my phone developed hauntings. I set the app to save any new motion events automatically. And then, because I felt like a man who had put his hand on an electric fence without knowing if the fence was live, I did one more thing. I opened a fresh account with a storage service and named the first folder, Do Not Gaslight Me. It made me laugh, which made me feel like a person I recognized for a second. Then I went and lay beside her in the dim bedroom, her breath warm against my forearm, and counted slowly to 40 before sleep came like a poor substitute for answers. Sunday morning, the air in the apartment felt heavier. Not hot, not stale, just thick, like I had to push through it. Aaliyah moved around the kitchen with that soft efficiency she put on when she wanted to look busy and unapproachable at the same time. I sat at the table scrolling news I wasn't reading, pretending not to notice she'd already pulled on jeans and a fitted sweater, even though we had no plans. Her hair was tied low, neat, like she'd taken more care than a lazy Sunday warranted. Thinking of going to Vika's for a bit, she said over her shoulder, spoon clinking in her mug. She's having a meltdown about her landlord. I kept my eyes on my phone. Is this the same landlord she drinks with? She says he's been creeping her out lately, Aaliyah said. She wants to show me some letters she got. I swallowed a laugh. Letters. Threats. Landlords. The coincidence was a little too on the nose. Need a ride? She shook her head. I'll grab the bus. Might be out late. I glanced at the clock, 10:13 a.m., and filed out late away. When she left, the citrus scent didn't trail as much, but the faint marker smell still lingered in the hoodie she pulled on. I waited until I heard the stairwell door shut before pulling my own shoes on and slipping out the side entrance. If she was taking the bus, she'd head east toward the stop. Instead, I watched her from a half block away as she walked west, cut down to the boulevard, and climbed into a silver Skoda idling at the curb. Same partial plate from the other night. Tape over the last 2 digits. My chest thumped in that slow, deep way that feels like a warning more than adrenaline. I hung back. The car pulled into light traffic, and I trailed them for a few blocks before realizing I wasn't exactly invisible. I called a rideshare and told the driver to keep a safe distance from the silver Skoda ahead. He gave me a weird look but complied after I tipped in advance. They stopped downtown, in front of a mid-rise with mirrored windows and a black awning. I saw her get out, sling a tote bag over her shoulder, and disappear inside without looking back. I didn't follow her in. Instead, I took a wide loop around the block and found the service entrance. It opened onto a hallway lined with buzzers, mail slots, and a single security camera. I checked my phone's camera roll. Still had the zoomed shot from the other night of her entering a similar doorway. Same black awning, same mirrored windows, same unknown building. Back at our apartment hours later, she came in flushed, hair slightly mussed like she'd had wind in her face, and dumped the tote by the couch. Vika says hi, she said, without prompting, like she was planting an alibi before I even asked. I hummed in response, kept my tone mild, and watched her pad into the bathroom. The tote sat there, mouth gaping just enough for me to see a manila folder inside. I didn't touch it. Not yet. That night, I set the hallway camera to send me push alerts for any movement within 20 feet of our door. I also set up a tiny motion sensor cam just inside the apartment, facing the door from the coat stand. If she came or went, I'd have 2 angles. It made me feel like a thief in my own life, but the feeling passed when I remembered her easy lie about the bus. Monday was uneventful until just before 3 a.m. I woke to the soft mechanical click of the front door latch. My phone buzzed. Motion detected. 304. She was in the hoodie again, this time carrying a flat rectangular package wrapped in brown paper, no label. She opened the door slowly, stepped into the hall, and bent to set the package down on the landing. She tapped something into her phone, then walked down the hall, out of frame. A minute later, the silver Skoda eased into view. A man in a beanie stepped out, scooped the package, and ducked back into the car. The plate was still obscured. I screenshotted the whole sequence. I lay there, phone screen inches from my face, until she returned at 3:22, empty-handed. She kicked her shoes off quietly, slid back into bed, and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 20 minutes. I kept my breathing even until she drifted into that deep, slow rhythm, and only then rolled onto my back to stare at the ceiling. My mind was loud with questions, but there was a cold, clean thread running through them. Whatever she was doing, she was confident I'd never confront her without proof. Tuesday afternoon, while she was at work, I went into the closet again. The laptop was still there, but the templates folder had grown. 3 new documents dated the day before. One was titled Urgent Lease Termination Request, filled in with our exact address, citing credible threats and multiple incidents of harassment. Another was a daily incident log, with entries for nights we'd been watching Netflix together. The third was a letter addressed to our landlord, claiming he'd left notes on our door at unsafe hours. I checked my own camera archives for those dates. Nothing. The notes didn't exist, at least not yet. I started to get it. She was building a paper trail, and I wasn't meant to see the real story until she dropped it like a bomb. By then, I'd be the unreasonable boyfriend who didn't believe her danger. I pulled back. If I showed my hand too early, she'd pivot. The better play was to keep collecting. Keep letting her believe I was just the distracted, trusting Nate she'd been with for 3 years. And so I did. Smiling over dinner, watching movies, letting her fall asleep draped over me, while my mind was already rewinding the footage of her at 3:04, 3:07. Every shadow time-stamped like a countdown. Ask ChatGPT, you said, Part 3. ChatGPT said, by Thursday, the pattern was gnawing at me. Days were calm, even domestic. Nights carried that electric potential like the air before a storm. She was more affectionate than usual, almost performative with it, hugging me from behind while I made coffee, sending little texts in the middle of the workday like she used to when we first met. If I didn't have the footage, I might have thought she was falling back in love with me. But the cameras don't lie. That night, I sat at my desk with headphones on, pretending to be lost in some YouTube rabbit hole while my phone rested in my lap, streaming the feed from the hall cam. At 3:06, the motion alert came. She was already at the door, hoodie on, hair tucked in this time, a small duffel slung over one shoulder. She paused for just a second, listening, and then slipped out. I let her get a head start before I followed at a distance. She didn't head for the elevator this time. She took the stairs, 3 floors down to the parking level. I kept far enough back to avoid the echo of my own footsteps giving me away. When I reached the garage, I peeked around the corner in time to see her crossing to the silver Skoda. The same guy was driving, his beanie pulled low. This time, she got in the back seat. The duffel stayed with her. They left. I didn't chase them this time. I had another angle to work. I pulled up the garage's security feed from my building's tenant portal. It was grainy, but it gave me the timestamp and confirmed the license plate, partially covered with black tape over the last 2 digits. I screenshotted everything, noting the exact time they left, 3:10 a.m. She came back at 4:02, empty-handed again, hoodie zipped to the chin. I stayed in bed with my back to her, pretending to be asleep. She lay there quietly for a long while before turning over and resting her head on my shoulder. My heart didn't speed up. It just thudded once, heavy, like a gavel. The next afternoon, she brought up our landlord out of nowhere. "Has Koval been acting off to you lately?" she asked, stirring sugar into her tea. I looked up from my laptop. "Off how? Like leaving weird notes? Coming by at strange hours?" She sipped. "I think he's been harassing." I set my cup down slowly. "I haven't seen anything." Her expression tightened just a fraction before she gave me this rehearsed little shrug. "Maybe it's just me. I'll keep an eye out." That night, I didn't have to wait until 3. At 2:58, the hall cam caught her cracking the door open, a small folded paper in her hand. She knelt and taped it to the outside of our door, glancing both ways before retreating inside. 2 minutes later, she emerged again, this time wearing the hoodie, pulling the hood up, and leaving for the stairs. I waited until the elevator's distant ding told me she was gone, then opened the door. The note was on plain white paper, typed in a basic Arial font, with a few words in bold. "You need to leave before something bad happens. This is your only warning. No signature, no identifying marks." I took a photo of it in place, then peeled it off and slipped it into a folder on my desk. Back inside the apartment, I replayed the footage. Aaliyah kneeling, the paper in her hand, the tape from our own kitchen drawer. She'd crafted her own harassment. When she came back just after 3:20, I was at the table, pretending to be half asleep over my laptop. She slipped inside, moving quietly, and went straight to the bedroom without a word. It was clear now. She was building a case. The templates, the fake logs, the planted notes. She wanted out of the lease without paying a penalty. And I was starting to suspect she wasn't planning to leave alone. I decided I needed more than just hallway footage. I ordered a second small cam, one I could hide in the kitchen that would catch the door, the living room, and part of the hallway leading to the bedroom. If she moved anything, brought anything in, made any more evidence, I'd see it. For now, I kept my mask on. I made dinner for us that night, laughed at her jokes, and kissed her goodnight. But under it all, I was counting down to 3:07, knowing that sooner or later she was going to give me everything I needed in one perfect clip. By Saturday, my apartment felt like a crime scene I was quietly curating. Every camera angle, every screenshot, every weirdly specific timestamp was another piece in a puzzle she didn't know I was building. The new kitchen cam arrived that morning, a matte black little thing that blended perfectly into the shadow of the spice rack. From that spot, it could see the front door, the couch, and half the kitchen counter. I set it to record on motion only, saving directly to the same cloud folder as the hallway footage. She spent most of the day on her phone, lounging in sweats, scrolling with that faraway half-smile she got when she was texting Vika. I caught the faint ping of a rideshare notification at one point, muffled by the fabric of her hoodie. She didn't mention any plans. By evening, she'd switched to her at-home, but still Instagram-ready outfit. Leggings, an oversized tee, hair in a messy top knot. Around 10 p.m., she curled up beside me on the couch, pressing her cold toes under my thigh, and suggested we watch a movie. We'd barely gotten 20 minutes into it when she remembered she had laundry in the dryer. She padded down the hall in socks, and the kitchen cam caught her passing through with a manila envelope in hand. She didn't go to the laundry room. She opened the front door, slid the envelope just outside, and shut it again, checking the peephole before she came back. A few minutes later, the hall cam pinged. Silver Skoda, same driver. He stepped out, scooped the envelope, and left without knocking. I didn't move, didn't let my face change. But in my head, I could already see the eventual playback, my proof growing stronger with every pass. The following morning, I woke up to the sound of tape being torn from a roll. I lay still, breathing slow, and let her finish whatever she was doing. When I finally woke up and wandered to the kitchen, there was another note on our door. This one was more aggressive. If you don't leave, I'll make sure you regret it. Bolded again, same font, same paper. See? She said, wide-eyed when she saw me looking at it. This is the third one. Third? I asked, feigning confusion. There was one last week, but I threw it out. Didn't want to freak you out. I nodded slowly as though processing the gravity of it. Inside, my stomach turned. Not from surprise, but from the way she layered lies like bricks, building her own reality. Later that afternoon, while she was showering, I checked the kitchen cam footage. There she was at 6:14 a.m., standing at the counter with a piece of paper and the roll of masking tape from our junk drawer. She folded the note neatly, carried it to the door, and pressed it into place. No hesitation. That night, I made sure the apartment felt normal. Ordered takeout, put on her favorite series, let her choose the wine. She laughed more than she had in weeks, draped herself over me like nothing was wrong. I played along, all the while knowing that the noose she was knotting for me was actually tightening around her. I started planning the next move. The notes, the late-night trips, the mystery driver, the duffel bags. It was all too perfect to waste. I needed a moment where it all came together, where I could drop every piece of evidence in one clean strike. And I knew exactly when to set it. The next time she left at 3:07, thinking I was asleep. Only next time I'd be waiting. And the cameras wouldn't just be watching the door, they'd be watching her pack for her escape. By Monday, the anticipation was a low, constant hum in my chest. I didn't know exactly when she'd make her next move, but I could feel it, like the air right before a summer storm. She was careful now, softer in her tone, brushing my arm when she walked past, offering to make dinner. That fake comfort only made the tension worse. I kept my routine exactly the same. I didn't hover. I didn't check my phone obsessively in front of her. But every device was armed, every feed linked to my cloud. The kitchen cam, the hallway cam, the hidden one in the corner of the living room, angled just right to catch her if she started moving things while I slept. On Tuesday night, I set the stage. I've been so wiped lately, I told her over dinner. Thinking of crashing early tonight, she smiled sympathetically, and that was my confirmation. She didn't suggest we watch something together or go for a walk. She wanted me out of the way. By midnight, I was in bed, lights off, breathing slow. I lay there for hours, staring at the faint green glow of the alarm clock until the hallway camera pinged on my phone at 3:06. Showtime. Through the tiny preview window, I watched her in the hoodie, slipping out of the bedroom barefoot to avoid the creak in the floorboards. She went straight to the closet, pulling out the laptop sleeve, a jewelry box, and a few folded pieces of clothing. She tucked them into a plain cardboard pizza box. Cheap, easy to carry, invisible in a hurry. The kitchen cam caught her transferring small items from the junk drawer into the pizza box. Spare keys, our passports, a couple of envelopes that had been in my desk. She moved quickly but not recklessly. This was rehearsed. She checked the peephole, cracked the door, and stepped out with the box under her arm. 2 minutes later, the hallway cam got the SCOTA pulling up. Beanie guy again. She passed him the box, said something I couldn't make out, and ducked back inside. She stopped in the kitchen for a second, looking around, and I realized she was making sure nothing seemed out of place for when I woke up. She even poured herself a glass of water before heading back to bed, slipping under the covers as though she'd been there all along. I let her breathing settle before quietly reaching for my phone and saving the footage to the "Do Not Gaslight Me" folder. The pattern was complete now. Planted threats, falsified harassment, secret drop-offs, stolen documents, and a clear co-conspirator. The last thing I needed was the ending, her attempt to cash in the story. I didn't have to wait long. The next morning over coffee, she sighed heavily and said, "I don't think I can stay here much longer. It's not safe." I nodded, careful not to let any of my satisfaction show. "What do you want to do?" "I think we need to terminate the lease. I can talk to the housing board about the harassment. We might even get our deposit back." "Makes sense," I said, like I was hearing it for the first time. She smiled, relieved, like she'd just convinced me to step onto a trapdoor she'd been building for weeks. She had no idea that by the time we got to that meeting, I'd be the one pulling the lever. The hearing was set for Thursday afternoon at the Housing Commission's downtown office. Aaliyah dressed for sympathy. Soft cardigan, hair pulled back neatly, minimal makeup to make her look tired but composed. She clutched a folder thick with papers like it was a lifeline. I carried nothing but my phone and a slim binder. In the small conference room, the commissioner sat at the head of the table, our landlord Koval across from us, arms folded. Aaliyah opened strong, her voice trembling just enough. She read from her incident log, passed around copies of the threatening notes, and even produced a few grainy photos of the hallway at night, conveniently blurry, all missing faces. These, she said, sliding the stack toward the commissioner, show a clear pattern of harassment. I've been afraid for my safety for weeks. We just want to leave without penalty. Koval snorted. I've never written a single note. I don't know where she got these. Aaliyah shot him a look like he'd just kicked a puppy. You're lying. The commissioner turned to me. Mr. Hart, do you have anything to add? I kept my tone calm. I do. I've been documenting our nights for a while now. I reached into my binder and slid a printed still across the table. Aaliyah at 2:58 a.m., in full color, taping the first threatening note to our own door. The timestamp glared in the corner. That's not, she started, but I was already pulling up the next clip on my phone. The screen lit the room as the commissioner leaned in. There she was again, hoodie up, passing a package to the silver Skoda at 3:07 a.m. Another clip, her packing the pizza box with my documents, handing it off to the same driver. Then the kicker, a video from the kitchen cam showing her printing one of the notes, folding it, and taping it in place. The commissioner's pen stopped moving. These are your own recordings? Yes, I said. Backed up to cloud storage. I can provide full, unedited files. Aaliyah's voice wavered. You don't understand. I laid down the final piece. Screenshots from a group chat labeled Operation Clean Break, featuring her and Vika discussing deposit money and key handoff on Friday. The messages were dated, with her name and profile picture right there. Koval leaned back, satisfied. Told you. The commissioner closed the folder. Ms. Rahman, these materials show a deliberate attempt to falsify harassment claims. I'm referring this to the police for further review. The lease stands until terminated by mutual agreement, and the deposit remains with Mr. Hart. Aaliyah stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. You set me up. No, I said quietly. You set yourself up. I just hit record. 2 days later, she was gone. She left behind a half-empty closet, a single mug in the sink, and the faint smell of lemon cleaner in the air. I changed the locks the same afternoon. Weeks passed before I heard from her again. An angry string of texts blaming me for ruining her life, claiming the driver was just helping with storage. I didn't reply. Sometimes, when I walk past the front door at night, I glance up at the hallway cam. It blinks back at me, silent and patient. I keep it there, even though I don't need it anymore. Not to catch anyone. Just to remind myself what the truth looks like when you don't let someone else write it for you.